Imagine the 1930s in Germany. Autobahns still half-finished, engineers with round glasses and perfect hair arguing about torque curves. And then, out of the smoke of their slide rules, comes the FAUN L900 D567, a truck so enormous it looked like it could tow the entire Reichstag uphill backwards and still complain about fuel prices. Built by FAUN Werke AG of Ansbach and Nürnberg, this mechanical colossus first rolled out around 1937 and immediately became one of the most powerful heavy haulers of its era. Now, this was no ordinary lorry. The L900 was a 6x4 heavy truck, 3 axles, 2 of them driving, with a payload capacity of 9,000 kilograms, roughly 19,840 pounds. The empty vehicle alone tipped the scales at 8,800 kilograms, about 19,400 pounds, which means if you ever ran out of cargo, you could just carry the truck itself for exercise. It measured 9.8 meters, around 32 feet long, 2.5 meters, about 8.2 feet wide, and 2.6 meters, roughly 8.5 feet tall. Not exactly the sort of thing you'd squeeze into a parking spot outside your local bakery. Under that massive hood sat a Deutz diesel engine, a 6-cylinder beast displacing 13,538 cubic centimeters, 13.5 liters. It churned out 150 horsepower, around 112 kilowatts, and a mighty torque of roughly 700 newton meters, 516 pound-feet. Later versions used an 8-cylinder engine of 18 liters, producing 180 horsepower, about 132 kilowatts. You could hear one of these coming before you saw it. A deep industrial rumble that made coffee cups tremble and horses rethink evolution. Top speed? A respectable 50 kilometers per hour, around 31 miles per hour. Not fast, but when you weigh 9 tons, aerodynamics are more of a polite suggestion than a science. The FAUN L900 D567 was built for towing, not racing. Its main partner in crime was the SDA 115 trailer, a specialized low-bed transporter designed to haul tanks and armored vehicles. Together, the pair could move 2 Panzer I light tanks at once or a single Panzer III without breaking a sweat. That combination became one of the earliest dedicated tank transport systems of the Wehrmacht. In a way, the L900 was Germany's Uber for tanks, except without air conditioning, music, or personal space. Driving one was an adventure. The truck's cab was open, with a folding canvas roof and windscreen. When it rained, the driver got wet. When it snowed, the driver froze. And when it was sunny, he was still covered in dust. Comfort was measured not in luxury, but in the number of hours you could drive before your spine asked for a transfer. But mechanically, it was a masterpiece of practicality. Simple leaf spring suspension, rugged axles, and huge 20-inch tires that looked like they'd been borrowed from Zeppelin landing gear. Fuel efficiency was, let's say, optimistic. At around 50 liters per 100 kilometers, roughly 4.7 miles per gallon, the L900 drank like a retired sailor. The good news was that Deutz's diesel was reliable. It started in freezing temperatures and handled dust and mud better than most petrol engines of its time. No radiators boiling over, no frozen coolant, no nonsense. You just turned the key and hoped the ground beneath you didn't sink. Production numbers were never huge. Historical records suggest only about 80 to 90 units were built between 1937 and 1940. Each truck was hand-assembled with military precision and probably military budget arguments. Some sources say it cost more than a small house in Berlin at the time, but given that it could pull an actual house, that feels like a fair deal. In service, the L900 D567 quickly proved its worth. It hauled tanks across Europe's mud, snow, and gravel roads. In Poland, France, and later in the Soviet Union, these trucks were the quiet giants behind the front lines, bringing supplies and recovering damaged armor. Soldiers nicknamed them Der Riese, the giant, not only for their size, but for the way they kept moving, no matter what you threw at them. They were so strong that some drivers claimed you could tow a train wagon with one, though it's hard to tell if that's fact or beer-fueled legend. Of course, no machine is perfect. On narrow village streets, turning one of these things was like trying to park a cathedral. The steering wheel was so large you could see it from space. And without power assistance, it was basically arm day at the gym for every turn. And the gearbox? A 4-speed manual that didn't so much shift as negotiate. Every gear change came with a sound like two cast iron doors arguing in German. But it worked. It always worked. The FAUN's engineering was ahead of its time. It used a ladder frame chassis with reinforced cross members, making it nearly indestructible. Each axle was mounted on massive leaf springs, and the rear drive system used a 2-stage reduction to handle incredible loads without snapping the shafts. Mechanics loved it because everything was accessible, repairable, and over-engineered in that very German way. If one bolt could do the job, they used 4. As the war progressed, the Faun L900 was gradually replaced by half-track vehicles and specialized tractors like the FAMO SDKF-9. But the L900 remained in service for heavy logistics, bridging, and transport operations. Some were even fitted with makeshift armor plates to protect the crew from shrapnel, which made them look like someone had crossed a truck with a medieval knight. After the war, a few surviving Fauns were captured and used by the Allies for engineering and construction duties. Apparently, once you had one, you never wanted to let it go. It was like owning a bulldozer with a sense of duty. Even today, restorers and collectors dream of finding an original L900 chassis in a barn somewhere in Bavaria. A few examples still exist, gleaming at museums and military shows, their diesel engines still growling with the same pride they had in 1937. When you stand beside one today, you realize the Faun L900 D567 was not just a truck, it was a statement. A symbol of German industrial ambition wrapped in steel and diesel. It was tough, loud, inefficient, and utterly magnificent. It may have been built for war, but its legacy is one of mechanical beauty and endurance. It proved that a well-designed machine can outlast empires and still make people smile 80 years later. So next time you hear the deep rumble of a diesel engine, imagine the Faun L900 charging up a muddy hill, a tank trailer in tow, and a driver wondering if he'll ever see his spine again. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe, because there's always another legend on wheels waiting to be brought back to life.